What's up, everybody? Welcome into a Denver Sports Monday. Hope you have a wonderful start to your week going. Hope you had a good weekend. I had one weekend day that was great, and then I paid for it the next day. So I hope your entire weekend was wonderful, unlike mine, which was one good day and one bad day to kind of deal with. But it was worth it. It was one of those, you steal happiness from the next day. That old adage, to me, absolutely correct. So spent a little time paying for Saturday with Sunday, Overall, I'd say a quiet weekend in Denver sports. But a couple big stories, a couple national stories we'll get to as well. I think obviously the biggest thing is the Broncos preseason game. We'll talk about how that went against the Green Bay Packers. Then an interesting quote from Joe Sakic comes out of the alumni game, which looked like a lot of fun, and for some reason featured my boy, Ryan Miller. I have no idea why, but cool to see him there with some legends for the Avalanche. That's a lot of fun. And then we'll get into thoughts for the rest of preseason. We're in the home stretch here. So, you are getting down to the nitty gritty in terms of these guys making the team and what the final 53 is and getting ready for that Monday night or week one. So an exciting time in the football season as we, they have this little false start here where you play your last preseason game generally on a Thursday, and then you get a week off, and it's for the fans, it's like a 2-week bulk. And you try to fill the gap with college football, which will be nice. I mean, it exists, but you hit this little 2-week free time period to kind of do what you please with in the NFL, which is always interesting. But it does give the opportunity for some signings. If you're looking to put somebody on your roster that was on somebody else's 53, and or if somebody gets cut, you get a little reprieve here, a couple weeks that you can introduce them to the team before the game starts. So an interesting little time period here for the NFL. But let's start going through this. Let's start with the preseason grades. I'm going to use John Heath's breakdown here as some fodder. So let's get him pulled up. Okay. So John Heath, Broncos Wire, that is USA Today. And I don't think we need this extra section here. I think this is all ads, so we can just go like this. Make it a little bigger, a little easier to read. Okay. So he gets right into the grades. 33-13, and even the commentators were kind of joking about it as the game was going on. Levy and Ryan Harris, our guy, and just kind of making light of the fact that we're all just kind of waiting for week one, aren't we? I mean, the Broncos showed out so well against the Falcons and showed out so well at the start of that game that the rest of it kind of didn't matter. Now, of course, it matters for those players trying to make the 53 in their jobs. But in terms of outlook for the Broncos season, anything past, midway through the first quarter, I mean, even the guys were joking. It just doesn't really matter or shouldn't affect your thoughts about this Bronco team and where they are. If you want to look at what their starting lineup had done, it was great. So, listen, Green Bay did put up points on the Bronco defense, starting Bronco defense, but it was aided by some penalties and some mistakes. You had an almost turnover there with Pat Surtain ripping out the ball. That was a real close call. Could have been a turnover. Unfortunately, Riley Moss gets hurt on that play. But it's one of those things where Green Bay's a good team. They got a good quarterback, and of course they're going to move the ball. I thought you had a couple chances to stop them, and if that had been a regular season game, I think you give the Broncos defense a drive there and then let them kind of settle in, and they probably end up being okay throughout the game. But I thought they played all right. I mean, I wasn't over the moon with them, but they were fine. Best defensive player is Riley Moss, who got hurt. But grade's a grade. Q Robinson, I like seeing him up here. Zach Allen, of course. Jonathan Cooper. But I thought the defense overall played pretty well. You know, the names you see here. Pat did get beat on a couple plays. It's interesting that he's down here. He did get beat on a couple plays, but of course, being an all-pro like he is, got himself back into the plays. One of them being the fumble, another one being an almost fumble. So after he got beat, he was able to make up for it, but I don't know. John Heath says he seems to be shaking some rust off, which, you know, you get, but overall, I would say I was okay with their defense. I don't think they were great, but I also don't think they were fully geared up. So, you know, and I don't think you see any of them on Thursday. The discussion, I think, is Bo Nix and the offense. And we had heard all camp how well he had done. People that I trusted, that I knew were there, said he looks great. I don't think there's any limitations. I think he's ready to go. And it felt that way when he came out. I mean, he was using his legs no problem. Hits that nice throw to Waddle. Waddle makes something happen after the catch. He's your highest graded player. Again, these grades are weighted by the fact that they only played a certain amount of snaps, of course. Good to see Jonah Coleman on the top 5 of grades, but Bo Nix down there at the bottom, 73, 5th best offensive grade. I mean, I think you saw what you wanted to see. Bo Nix comes out. He hits a nice pass to Waddle. Waddle breaks it for extra yardage. You score a touchdown, and I didn't even need to see him for the second drive, but, you know. No real analysis from Heath there in terms of breaking it down. Yeah, I think the Ellinger, this is interesting because I think the Ellinger Stidham conversation's over. It was, and I think it was worthy to be talked about if, you know, he could take that job from Stidham, but I don't think so. Not after that game. You know, you'd have to really blow people away in practices and maybe in the 4th preseason game for something like that to happen. But I think chances are you got Stidham as the backup, and then you sneak Ellinger back onto the practice squad. This is concerning. This is the kind of thing I'd want to, and maybe I can talk him into joining us on the podcast at some point. But our guy Tyler Columbus, like, I'd love to just talk with him about Ben Powers, and you know, it feels like they've always been a little bit disenfranchised with how he's played, and it's just he's got a big contract, so, you know. But they have a good offensive line, and he's part of it. I don't want to downplay that. But anytime there's a complaint about the offensive line, it seems to come from Ben Powers. So, you know, I'd love to hear from a former offensive lineman their thoughts on what he can do. Now, listen, he's had a tough training camp because the center next to him is constantly switching with injuries, right? And it's hard to get into a flow when the guy who's making the calls presumably is the center, and he's constantly changing. The guy next to you is constantly changing. And yes, you have to learn how to roll with those punches, but if somebody like Tyler Columbus tells me to give him a little grace just because that guy next to him is always changing, I'd be inclined to do that as well. So maybe it's just a consistency thing and the fact that center hasn't been locked down here for the beginning of training camp. You hope they get completely healthy. They're good to go going into the season. But overall, I'd say, I mean, I was real comfortable with how the first team played. And if that's a regular season game, I think you get into a shootout with the Packers. You know what I mean? Each team scores a couple touchdowns. Both sides settle in a little bit. And, you know, it's a close game to the end. Packers are a good team, man. That's fine. The way that it was playing out at the start of that game and in the first quarter, I think doesn't cause any room for alarm. And I've seen just a little bit of it in Denver media over the weekend. It's like, oh, man, it didn't look great. But that was the end of the game. You know what I mean? So, yes, the game, I agree. The game didn't look great, but that was, you know, end of the second quarter and the second half, it didn't look great. You'd like to have some better execution there, and I'm sure Sean Payton's going to hammer down on them. It's old coaching technique is you can take something like that and really hammer down, and even though your starters don't deserve it per se, you can say, hey, we win and lose as a team, you know what I mean? And so I'm sure he'll use that to hammer down on the starters a little bit and make sure they're prepared for week one. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, to me it just feels like a non-story. I feel great about where this team is. I even feel good about their depth. Like, I don't know, I feel like the game versus Atlanta was a better inclination of your depth. Personally. But, you know, maybe that's just orange-colored glasses. But I feel good about the Broncos' depth. I feel good about their starting offense, and I think their starting defense will come around. I'm not worried about them at all. Like I said, they had stops on those first couple of drives and a penalty and a turnover that got overturned. You know, there's a couple times they could have gotten off the field. So yeah, I don't know. I'd say overall I feel fine about them. Of course, they have the quick turnaround here, which shouldn't really matter, because I guess some of obviously the second and third stringers will be playing on 28th is Thursday, right? 24. Yeah, so the 28th. Do I have that right? Why can't you show me a calendar? Friday. I keep saying Thursday. Okay. Friday. Quick turnaround for some of the guys who, you know, actually played on Sunday, but nobody who matters, you know, is going to play in that game on Friday night. It's really just to have a showcase for the guys, you know, for the maybe 1-2 spots that they have that are open. But I don't really think there's much of a question when it comes to who is going to make the team and who's not. I don't know. I'm just kind of taking a quick look at the depth chart right here. I mean, you know, these guys are on there. Let's see if we can find a 53 projection. Okay, Leggy's got a 53-man projection up. Let's spend a minute with this one. Love Leggy. Trust him a lot. Okay, quarterbacks. No question there. I think it was. Oh, he thinks they're going to roster all three. Oh, that's interesting. So here's Leggy saying that Stidham might get some trade interest. We do know Ellinger turned down active roster offers. but I don't know. But if Leggy thinks they're going to roster 3, I'll take his word for it. Listen, I like McLaughlin. I think he's way better than Bidet, but it's interesting. But so 4 for the running backs, of course, Prentice for the fullbacks. I don't think any shockers here so far. Maybe 3 quarterbacks is the biggest shocker so far. 5 wide receivers is what you'd expect to see. Four tight ends is interesting. Nine offensive linemen. Any surprises there as far as names are going? Yeah, I mean, so no Forsyth is a little surprising to me, especially with the injuries they've had. Um, so that's interesting that he's got 9 offensive linemen, not 10, and Forsyth and Pert are your 2 that don't make it. Now, Pert, from what I've heard, hasn't had a great camp. But Forsyth, with all your injuries, you feel like that's somebody that they'd want to maybe keep on the roster. But, to do that, you got to take somebody off somewhere else. No Savion Jones is a surprise to me. Interesting. So Jordan Jackson beats out Savion Jones for a spot. That's a spot that you could have decided in this upcoming game here. Same thing with the offensive linemen. You might get a change there, depending on who's healthy, who plays, availability. Red Murdoch making the linebackers. Yeah, I mean, listen, there. So he's talking about if they have 2 rookie backups, like would they be willing to do that if they kept York? Listen, I'm just telling you, Red Murdoch is a dog. Uh, you know, is he a little bit? Is he getting used to the speed of the NFL? Yes. I think there were a couple times versus the Packers that you see him making a tackle 4 or 5 yards downfield because he's just not getting to the point quick enough. But I think he's been impressive, and I got a special place in my heart for him. So I think he's obviously a lock, but if I don't think he should preclude York from getting a spot if they think York is good enough. But he's saying that they've liked Turner's progress, so we'll see about that. I think this is a great cornerback room. Like, that might be the best corner room in the league, if I'm being totally honest. Oh, look, I didn't even read, but there you go. This is perhaps the league's deepest cornerback room. But yeah, I mean, that's just Chris Abrams-Drain is your 5th. That's such a good room. I don't think there's any surprises there on the safety list. Skinner for his special teams, Key for his special teams, yeah. And then I don't think there was any conversations here. Apparently they brought in another long snapper, but it was always Lutz and Crawshaw. So So, yeah, I mean, not too many surprises or battles. I think keeping 3 quarterbacks would be a little bit of a surprise to me, but I understand his logic in doing that. Um, I just don't know that you need to protect Ellinger unless you're actually considering trading Jared Stidham. And I'd need to see some proof of that before I believed it. Now, listen, there's a sleeper quarterback out there that you could sign to this roster that he would feel super comfortable with. So he's out there. He's just not really a quarterback. But I think the McLaughlin Bidet back and forth is interesting. You know I'm a McLaughlin guy. And then lineman, Forsyth not making it is a little bit of a surprise to me, but I'll be interested to see if that happens. On defense, Savion Jones getting cut would be a surprise to me. Linebacker is at least interesting. I don't know if it's a surprise. And that's it, really. So those are like the 5 spots that going into Friday you're looking for something from. You're looking to see anything from. Mental health guy back in the chat. What's good, dog? It's good to see you. Do you think the NFL has a QB development problem? Do you feel like the NFL has to have a little different approach when getting these guys from college because the game differs in so many facets and the talent gap is much smaller? I think the NFL used to have a quarterback development problem. I think it's going away now that quarterbacks are getting paid. Carson Beck, he would have come out after his, junior year. If he would have come out after playing in Georgia's junior year, probably would have been a first-round pick. And then all those struggles that you saw him go through his next 2 years would have been at the NFL level, and he would have been cut and knocked out. Instead, he comes in, plays in a preseason game, looks good, and probably will be able to hang around on a roster and develop a little bit more. And it's all because he was making enough money playing college football that he didn't feel like he had to go right to the NFL. And you're seeing that a lot nowadays. I mean, CJ Carr and I don't know, Trinidad Chambliss is trying to stay in school for another year. And, all these quarterbacks, they can make as much as they would as a 3rd or 4th round pick in college and actually play and start. And so you got a good point in college being different in a lot of facets and there being a talent gap and all those things. But the extra time these guys are getting, time on task, snaps, playing and starting, I think is helping them a lot. So I think the NFL did have a quarterback development problem. I think the UFL helps with that, even though people scoff at it a little bit. But I think the UFL helps with that. And I think that the fact that these guys are getting paid so much in college also, it's just encouraging guys to stay around. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not. A good example is Kyle McCord, who you watched. You might not have. But Bronco fans watched this past weekend, the backup for the Green Bay Packers. He stayed an extra year, went and played at Syracuse. And, they liked him so much, they cut his competition, and he's got the 3rd string job locked down. You know what I mean? So I think it's just NIL has hurt the game in a lot of ways, but that is one where I feel like it's really helped in terms of getting extra time on task for quarterbacks who probably aren't ready to go into the league and in generations past might have gone into the league earlier than they should have because of that. So, okay, let's talk about the other Bronco news for the day. Pat Surtain, ranked 10th on the NFL's top 100 list. And the talk is if it's a snub, if it's too low for the Broncos' number one player. I think him at number 10 is pretty fair. I mean, to say he's in your starting lineup for the NFL is I think, a really fair thing to say. Yeah, I think this is the point, and let's make sure we credit who wrote this. Tim Lynch for Mile High Report, the SB Nation site. I think this is the part that is really wild. And when you look at this and think about it, there was like a turnover of cornerbacks, and like Sauce and Surtain jumped into the top spot, so fast that it makes you be like, man, was there a couple years there where we were kind of weak on corners? And I think you had a couple top guys who didn't really turn into top guys, and a few disappointments, and a few of those guys just turned out to be like good corners, but not great corners. And it's why you saw guys like Stephon Gilmore hang around for as long as he did. But to think, and to his point, what he says right here, it's crazy that he is 25 years old, and the prime years of his career are forward, not behind him. So can he put another couple Defensive Player of the Year awards together? Absolutely he can. And, he says what's already looking like a Hall of Fame career. I mean, even if he just kind of glides from here, I think it's a Hall of Fame career. So the question is, I mean, do you feel like it's disrespectful for him to be in the top 10? And I shouldn't put it like that, to be 10th and not higher on the list. And I don't think so. I mean, listen, the kid's incredible. But if you're in the starting 11 for the NFL, I'd say that's a pretty nice feather in the cap. And it's not like there's slouches above him. We're talking about millimeters of separation between these players who all play different positions. So it's hard to say, this one's better than that one, all that. At the end of the day, I think him being top 10, totally fair. And, we know who the others in the top 10 are. We don't know the order per se. I don't think they've come out with the full top 10 yet. I think they were starting at 10 and counting their way down. So we heard this about Pat Surtain before. We hear about the order of the rest of them. But regardless, kid's 25 years old. He's still got time to keep ascending that mountain and end up as one of the great all-time cornerbacks when you start having that conversation. And let me tell you, it's a hell of a thing to build your defense around. It really is. If you get to run that guy out there and erase a player or a half of the field just by putting him on the field, I mean, that's impressive. And it makes it way easier to build and call your defense, and I'm sure Vance would be the first one to tell you that. So here's the other thing. How good does that contract look like right now? Let's look up his contract. Shout out to Spoke Track. I know there's a few that you can use, but I always use Spot Track. Potential out. Yeah, they're not going to take that out, I promise you. So cap hit 12 million. I mean, it's ridiculous. This contract is so good. Oh man. That's just crazy, those numbers. Now, and this is all contracts nowadays, a ton of void notes, you know what I mean? Uh, so you'll have to re-sign them and push those off, and it's going to cost you more money on the cap long term, but by then you're hoping that that's such a small amount that you don't even notice it, which it likely will be. Or you can turn it into an extension rather than a new contract, and that way you can try to push those off, but they'll come back to get you at some point. Anything in the notes that matters here? It doesn't really look like it. No. It's just, I mean, even when you get here, when you get to the 28-29 season and his cap hits over $20 million, I mean, let's just, who's the corner for the Seahawks that just signed? What was his name? Come on. Stupid ads. I hate that so much. We're actively going to make our site worse. Witherspoon. Yeah. So, like, his cap hit 2 years from now, 27 million, 27 million. Then you get into the big ones, 36 million, 39 million. And Pat Surtain's coming in at 21. Come on. Listen, respect for Devin Witherspoon. He's not Pat Surtain, right? Like, and that takes you through his age 31 season, and for Surtain, it only takes you through his age 29 season. So, yeah, age 29 season. And he's at 21, 22 million. I mean, it's just that contract is so good. Now, listen, you're going to have to renegotiate it. You probably start talking about it next year and do it the year after. But a contract. It was a nice job by George Payton, that's for sure. Okay, we'll take a little bit break here. We'll run some commercials to burn pre-roll. Then when we come back, we are going to be talking. We'll do a kind of run around of Denver sports headlines and national headlines. Specifically, though, Joe Sakic commenting that there's a contract he thinks gets done before the season starts. That was optimistic to hear. So we'll talk about that when we come back and run around the national sports scene as well. So hang with us. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Okay, some big news in terms of the Avs. So they had their alumni game this past week, and I think this qualifies as big news, but it'd be interesting to see how the media takes it. Joe Sakic, confident the Avalanche secure Makar deal before the season. So this came from their alumni game, and apparently this was beforehand. And he said, "We continue talking. I'm pretty confident that he'll be signed before the season starts." I think that's big news. Contracts, as you know, getting bigger and bigger. It's just the way that it works. So the earlier that a team can sign a guy, the better it is for them. The guy obviously generally wants to wait. But with the discussion point that this contract is going to be, if they don't get him signed before the season starts, every question during the season turns into, where are you with contract talks? Are you signing? Are you saying something by not having signed yet? It just, with somebody of this caliber, it turns into way more of a distraction than it does, helpful, I think, either to the player or the team to wait. And players can say that they're not affected by it, but I know they are. I know they are. And so, if that's constantly looming in the back of Cale's mind, I just think this team, with the goals that they have this season, you can't have something like that dancing around in the back of your head. Sign the contract and get it over with. It's one of those things where you want to be here. They want you here. It's going to be a big number. Everybody knows it's going to be a big number. Get it worked out before the season starts. So if Joe's right, if they sign it before the season, I think that's good management. And I'm excited that Joe's back, has the reins on this. It's not to say anything bad about Chris McFarland, but he's just a little bit more aggressive when it comes to some of this stuff. And I like the idea of getting him back in the driver's seat for this team. Talked about a couple other big contracts that were signed. Bo Byram, $75 million, 6 years. I don't think he's in the ballpark with Cale, but the numbers might be similar. But I think Cale's probably more like 80 for 4 kind of thing. But he won't sign a 4-year. He'd want to sign a 7 or 8. I know that's changing where they're only allowed to hand out a certain number of those. But I don't know what the exact rules are when it comes to that. So, but I mean, if it's also a 6-year contract, I'm saying it's 120 million, something like that. Something on my microphone. Hair. So yeah, if it's a 6-year contract, I'm betting it's in the range of 120 million for like 20 million AAV. And so it's nice that Bo signed that contract with the Blackhawks. Good for him. I just don't think it's anywhere close to the number that Cale's going to be at. Interesting that he's saying Bednar doesn't get an extension, essentially. Yeah, and this is just so interesting to me. The Val Nichushkin thing. Like, I think Joe was probably the one in that room that's like, you got to get rid of him. And McFarland's like, the deal is too good. We can't do it. And immediately when Chris leaves, the first thing that happens is Joe's like, bye, Columbus Blue Jackets. There you go. Have fun. So, I just think in terms of for the mental health of your team, having that Kale deal signed, I think is a big deal. I don't think it's a huge deal to have Bednar signed. If he goes into his contract or into next year as the last year on his deal, then he does. I don't think anybody, because even if they signed him to an extension, if they fall apart or don't have a good year, like everybody knows he's gone. So I don't think it's a huge deal to not have him sign another year. It's performance based at this point. There's no doubt about it. So if Jared wants to be here, I think he'll be here. If he does, if they win. If they don't, then you might see a change in voice, a change in the room. A Bills type firing and hiring. So mental health guy, what are the expectations for DeRozan? I joined late. I don't know if you spoke on this already. I have not. That was actually one of the next things that we were going to talk about. DeMar DeRozan, I don't know. I mean, here's what I'd say. I'm not expecting a whole lot. For me, it's one of those things where it is a Band-Aid. I think if we were to have brought him in with everybody else that was here last year, then you'd feel pretty good about it. 18 points per game, 4 assists per game, shooting 32% from 3-point. I don't know. I mean, so what do I actually think? I think you probably have him come off the bench if he's open to that. I think you have him lead your second unit, and you try to make sure that those non-Jokic minutes are not devastating like they had been a couple years ago. But you lost Hardaway, you lost Valanciunas, you lost Watson, and you got to try to plug some of those holes with minimum contracts, and a guy like DeMar DeRozan's the best that you're going to do for something like that. But I just think this team still has issues, man. I really do. And I don't know if they've done enough for Yoke, who, I don't know. I mean, still in the prime of his career. And if he's comfortable with these guys, then you probably keep him and let him play out. But at the same time, you got to wonder, do you have to make some big time changes on this roster to get back to a spot that you want to be? The West is brutal right now in the NBA. It's absolutely brutal. San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, LA. I think you're in the top half of the West, but that doesn't get you very far. And you got knocked out in the first round last year. If you're a top 4 team in the West, then you're knocked out, in the second round instead? You got to do better than that. So, they still have to find ways to make that team better, I think. And I think it's going to take a big trade to do it. Which I don't know that Yoke wants to see, right? Like, I don't know that he wants to see Jamal gone or AG gone. And I love those guys, but I just think you have to try to find ways to rebuild this team a little bit. What they've been doing the past couple of years hasn't been working. And I'm not convinced that if you try to do the same thing, it's going to work. Now, because Jokic is on your team, are you going to win 50 games and, Does that put you in the top half of the Western Conference? Yeah, probably. But it's real nice that Oklahoma City said the toughest team we played on our run was the Denver Nuggets. Those guys are scary. You got to beat them. You know what I mean? And last year you get knocked out by a Timberwolves team that doesn't even have their star playing for half the series. So I don't know. I think it's disappointing, if I'm being totally honest, what they've done so far. I think they still have to do more. It's nothing against DeMar DeRozan. I still think he's got some juice left, and I'd love to have him come off the bench and run that second unit. But even if he's part of that first unit, great. I just don't know that that's enough to convince me that they're doing the right things for Yoke. And it's all about Yoke right now, man. It's all about Joker. If your every living and breathing thought should be, how do we get Jokic another championship? Everything you can do. I mean, you should be, and the Rams have done a huge disservice to GMs everywhere. Les Snead has really hurt GMs everywhere because, you should be Rams type aggressive. You know what I mean? Now, listen, they didn't have a tradable first round pick until the Peyton Watson deal. So if you want to convince me that that's been part of the reason that you let Watson go for as little as you let him go, but you needed a tradable first round pick so you could go get whoever. I just need a little bit more from them to really believe that this team is going to compete on that level, that Spurs Thunder level, and that's the level they need to be at. So disappointing is what I would say. Nothing against DeMar DeRozan. I mean, okay. To that end, and it's funny because they say essentially the same thing. But a little projection here for this year's standings from NBA insiders. And when we jump down here, it's, San Antonio and OKC running away, and then the Nuggets part of that middle class, So a lot of this conversation is about the Thunder and the Spurs. And then, you get a little bit down here on Minnesota. And then here at the very bottom, and this is what drives me crazy. When I say corpse of a contender, this is what I mean. In Denver, you can never count out a team that features 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic, but the Nuggets' biggest move this summer was essentially swapping Peyton Watson for DeMar DeRozan, plus gaining some much-needed breathing room above the second apron. Michael C. Wright. Oof. That's just, it's just not what you want to hear. And yeah, they're technically clear of, the play-in group, as they call it. But you with Jokic on your team can't be here. You got to be here. You know what I mean? And so maybe you can't top these two teams, but you got to find a way to put pressure on them. This needs to be more like 58, 59. You know what I mean? And so how do you need to rebuild your roster, reshape your roster to make that happen? And if you can't do that this year, then you need to have a plan to do it in the next 3. You just have to. So, man, I don't know. I don't know. Them Nuggets, man, they make me anxious. I think you're going to get 5-10 years down the road and look back and be like, man, that team should have had more than one. And I think that year that Giannis got one, I think that could have been it if it wasn't for all the injuries. There's a couple of seasons in there that you were like, man, if they were healthy, then what does that look like? But, man, it just creates a little bit of anxiety in you, doesn't it? That, like, over the next couple of years, how do they find a way to get one? Because they got to get another one, man. They have to. They have to for that dude. He's meant too much to you. It's literally the greatest player that's ever going to put on your jersey. And, man, if he leaves here with just one, you feel like not only was that a waste of time, but you feel bad for the dude, you know? All right, let's look at some national headlines. One of the big ones is mental health guy still here. Is Jokic the best Denver sports legend you have ever seen? Do you view him higher than Elway, etc. in their respective sports? I was young for the Elway era, so I maybe don't have as much respect for it as others do. But I think Jokic in his sport has been better than Elway in his sport. That's not talking shit about Elway. He was terrific. But Jokic, and like, they got tired of giving him MVPs. You know what I mean? Like, he should have 4, and you probably could have given him another 2 in there. And so that's not to say that Elway wasn't great. It's just they got tired of giving the man MVPs. I don't know how else to say it. So I think he's better than Elway was. You know, I think if you Sakic is responsible for every single one of the Avs Cups in some way or another. And so you just can't say that about anybody else. So I don't know. I mean, if we're taking into account, their after careers, then Sakic still has a lead on him. He did it 2 different ways. One as captain of the team, and then one as the GM of the team. 2 as captain. You know what I mean? He did the 2 ways that he did it was, one, he was the captain of the team for 2 cups, and then he did it a whole separate way. GM of the team and putting together and listen, as fans are terrific. There is a good hockey fan base here. But they were on some hard times, man. They were on some hard times before Sakic took back over. So, I mean, I think that's a great conversation. I don't think, respect to Todd Helton, but I don't think he rates amongst those names. If you made me pick one from every sport, then Todd gets in there. But I would say I'd say probably Jokic, Sakic, Elway. McKinnon, Davis, maybe Terrell Davis. Forsberg was so good; it was just so short. But I mean, all of Denver thought him and Sakic for a lifetime. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then, if you want to go back into like the 80s, you can. I mean, Skywalker, David Thompson was great. 70s for that. But, I mean, so much of the Denver sports history was written post-1990s. So no disrespect to the guys who came before that, but the Broncos were a fledgling franchise until Elway picked them up. I know Floyd Little is called the franchise for that reason, but, you're not talking about AFC championships or anything like that. Like, that team needed Pat Bowlen to buy them and turn it around. And the Nuggets a good ABA franchise, but have never seen the heights that they've seen now. Avs came in '96, and they've been great the whole time they were here, but, and then same thing with the Rockies, came in '92, I think it was. And so much of Denver sports history has been written since the early '90s. But I think Jokic clears. I think Jokic clears all of them. So it's a good question, though. Okay, let's go through with some of the headlines in sport right now nationally. Patriots trade Boutte. For Reed and a draft pick. Oh, Jalen Reed's a good player. Played in 7 games, 6th round rookie in 2025, and a 7th for Kayshon Boutte. It's funny, they have added a lot of wide receivers all of a sudden. So there's no promise that all of them make the cut, but they just added Zay Jones and God, who is the other person? I'm sure it's in here. But I think we're getting to that time of camp. I think this week and next week. You'll start seeing some names that switch teams a little bit, either with a trade prior to the cut down day or, obviously after cuts. The Jaden Higgins torn ACL is, they're smart to try to keep putting guys in that room alongside Nico Collins so he's not just, draped. But it's Zay Jones, and who was the other guy they added? Sterling Shepard. So as they try to rebuild that room, Tank Dell apparently isn't going to be ready. You just want to make sure that you have enough guys, that it's not all about Nico Collins getting double teamed all day, every day, So, Collins, Boutte, Shepard, Jones. Yeah, that room is packed right now. Look at how many guys are in there. You got 12 wide receivers. And you probably have 5 that make the team. Dell might be on injured reserve, but Collins, Hutchinson, Noel, Boutte, Watson. But that would mean Shepard and Jones don't make the cut, which I guess isn't too surprising, but man, look at this defensive line. Bring your lunch pail. Bills got to play them week 1, and I'm not looking forward to it. Especially if we can't get our O-line healthy before then. But I think it's a nice get for the Texans. I think the Patriots have been looking to trade Boutte for a while. ESPN, the only website that justifies everything to the right. And on the page, not like politically. 33 catches for 551 yards and 6 touchdowns for Butte last year. Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, Kyle Williams, and Efton Chisholm are now your depth wide receivers. Of course, you got A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs as starters. It's no doubt it's an upgraded room for him. But yeah, I mean, it had felt like they were looking to trade Butte for a while. Okay, what else we got on the list here? I didn't see this. The FBI searched the Rebels football office for recording devices after former coach Lane Kiffin left for rival LSU following the 2025 season. Wow, what a name for a podcast. We actually had the FBI come through and walk the building for bugs and for everything. We knew kind of what was in Baton Rouge, and we knew they operated, how they operated. I remember getting on my knees and looking underneath the desk, like checking for, is there some sort of bug in my office? Wow. I mean, I don't think that shocks anybody who knows SEC football. You ask your coaches to be like that, so don't be surprised when you get what you ask for. Mental health guy, we have to stop this portal nonsense. It seems like LSU is going to benefit, but this is not right. Well, I mean, the NIL stuff, yeah, I mean, we got to put some kind of governor on it. I like what they're doing with 5 for 5, you know. You turn 19 or graduate high school, you get 5 years with very limited waivers granted. I think it's smart. But you know, to do this, you have to empower the NCAA again. And all these conferences wanted to do was take away power from the NCAA because they didn't like the sanctions that got put on their school. And so all they wanted to do was take that away. And now you're seeing, congratulations, you got what you wanted. Here's your disaster. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do to rein in the NIL thing. There's got to be some kind of contracts. There's got to be some kind of, you know, it can't be free agency every year. So, you know, maybe your first transfer is free, and then after that you got to sit out a year and burn a year of eligibility. I don't know. But they all were so eager to take power away from the NCAA, and now all they want is them to fix it. In terms of the LSU thing, so for the coach thing, I don't mind what they did so much. There's just, I don't think any other way to, even if you move the dates around, I don't know that you could make it cleaner for LSU and Kiffin leaving. So as far as like the coach thing goes with LSU and the bug sweeping thing, I think that's all, I don't know, fine, I guess. Yeah, this is what I thought you were talking about. So mental health guy says, I don't think you should be able to play NFL football and come back if it doesn't work out. It's interesting. You know, if you were to go try out for an EPL team and didn't make it, you could go back and play for one of the minor league teams. There's no minor league football. There's minor league hockey. There's minor league baseball. There's now minor league basketball. There's minor league soccer. There's no minor league football. I mean, you can go to the UFL, but that doesn't even play at the same time as the NFL plays. College has always been the feeder system for the NFL. So unless they make a developmental league and make it strong, you're going to have this. And the fact that those kids are getting paid, it's going to be hard to tell them that they can't go make their money, So I agree it's stupid, but you have to come up with a better solution. And I haven't heard one from somebody. Like I said, I like the 5 for 5. I think that's a real simple rule. It's either when you turn 19 or when you graduate high school or some variant thereof. Your clock starts ticking. You get 5 years. The oldest people who can play are 24. And the only waivers that they allow for that, no injuries, no COVID, no nothing. The only waivers they allow for that are religious exemptions. For like the BYU kid that goes on a year-long trip can get an extra year, but that's it. I agree with you. It feels dirty, but I think the reason it feels dirty is just because we're not used to it, We're not used to a player being able to go back and play college football. But, yeah, LSU is definitely going to benefit from that. No doubt about it. And I do think the players should be getting paid. I don't like that this is how the system has worked out, because you knew about this for decades and refused to put any kind of plan in place about how you were going to pay them and pay them fairly. And so instead what you got was the dam breaking, and now you've got to pick up all the pieces afterwards. You should have had a plan in place to pay these kids. And I don't think they should be playing for free with how much money those athletic departments are making, So for me, it's a shame on the conferences and the teams for not finding a way to pay their players in a reasonable fashion, and now you're just left with the mess. And it's going to be tough for them to clean up. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Mental health guy. I just don't like 24, 5, or 6-year-olds playing against 19 or 20-year-olds. This may start pushing the high school kids back. Oh, yeah. I mean, it already has been. But that was, it was the COVID year thing, and it was a special circumstance, So the way they did it, they really screwed some of the younger players, because, like you said, you have a 26-year-old taking up your roster spot and your snaps. But I mean, it was such a unique thing what happened during COVID that, we would have had to go through and make a real detailed plan about how you could have done it better. And I don't know that you could have, with the time that we were given to react to what was happening. People like to backseat quarterback that whole thing and, oh, well, we should have known, blah, 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 blah. And it was not a time when everybody was, we didn't have as much time as everybody thought to go through and think about 7 years down the road how college eligibility was going to be affected. You know what I mean? So it's a tough situation. But again, I think something that could have been fixed by having a governing body over all of college football, and the big conferences wanted them out of their way. They wanted the NCAA out of their way. And you got your wish, man. You got your wish, you know? So, yeah. Jed York got nabbed in a prostitution case. Yeah. $140 night of fun he was trying to figure out. There are places in the world where prostitution is legal. If the girl wants him to pay for it and he wants to pay for it, I don't know. And he'll get chastised for it because, because we let it be an unregulated industry, there are really disturbing things that happen. This is a human trafficking task force that's busting people for prostitution. And if there's human trafficking involved, then yeah, it's a big problem. But if it was a regulated industry, you would take away the need for, take away the want, I guess, for people who are enticed by that sort of thing to commit crimes like human trafficking. And it's terrible. The human trafficking part of it is terrible. But that's what you have when you have an unregulated industry. And so, you're creating a demand, and then this is what happens. So, I don't know. I mean, the guy should do better. You've got enough money, you shouldn't be having to do that. But the whole industry is kind of messed up, if you ask me. Deshaun Watson, name Browns QB1, says he regrets ripping the fans. Cool. It's been 24 hours, and you already are walking back your statements that you made. Oh, my God. Called the fans disrespectful for booing him. Of course, you had to say he took the full body of work. He was awful against the Bills. Five of 12 for 35 yards and a pick for Watson against the Bills. I think the whole world knows it has nothing to do about the performance, Watson said Saturday. It was crazy while he was playing with a, $100,000 earring or whatever it was. Yeah, we don't like you, dog. Go ahead. Act like the victim. I don't know. Cleveland's getting what they deserve, and I feel terrible for their fans, because there are plenty of them who didn't like the deal to begin with, but how much better would they have been off just keeping Baker Mayfield? You know what I mean? It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me when they let him go. I was like, that man was hurt all year. It was crazy that man went through waivers. It was crazy that he signed with the Rams for one day and led a touchdown drive to win. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think the Browns deserve a lot of shame. I feel bad for their fans, but man, what a disaster that was. It's Who knows? It might turn into the curse of Baker Mayfield, But brutal. Just brutal. All right. Let's take a break here. We'll run some more ads to burn pre-roll. And then when we come back, we'll talk about what to expect from the Broncos this week and their game against the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll talk about that when we come back. Stick with us. All right, everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a nice little break there. Not much for this third segment here. I just wanted to talk a little Broncos and talk about what we can expect of their final preseason game. I don't think you're going to see many starters. I don't think that's anything that's new out there, but I'll be interested to see what Sean Payton says about that. Knicks went 6 of 9 for 76 yards and a touchdown in his 2 drives. Put up 10 points. And I just don't know that I need to see any more than that from him this offseason. I think you shut it down and get ready for the Monday night opener. Game's Friday at 7 o'clock. It is here at home, which is nice, but I think you see a lot of Stidham. I'd like to keep Coleman out of there if I can. I just think you play all, maybe not even second teamers, third, fourth teamers. To me, I don't think that the Broncos have a whole lot left to prove. I think it was a bad end to the game. I think if anybody has something to prove, it's those second and third teamers. And so, if you want to give those guys some run and get them through the game and see if you can get a better performance out of them than you did against the Packers, then great. But I don't expect too much. Mental health guy, maybe you can tell us if you expect to see any starters for the Vikings and what the word has been in Minnesota about how they're going to approach this final preseason game. But I imagine you'll see the same thing from them, which is a lot of backups. So let's see exactly when. Yes, I know. I want to know what the day is. August 30th. So that's Sunday. Is that right? Yeah, that looks right. Okay, August 30th is the date. And some teams will make their cuts before then in an attempt to have open roster spots when some of these other teams cut guys. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think there's a lot of spots up for competition in your final week here. Though I will say that Jeff Legwold did have a couple of projections that surprised me. So, maybe there are a couple spots still open. But for a team as good as the Broncos, there wasn't a lot of questions coming into camp. I can't imagine that there'll be a lot of questions going into this last game. I think if Sam Ehlinger is going to have a spot on your roster, which is what Legwold predicted, if Ehlinger is going to have a spot on your roster, on your 53, then I need to see more from him against second and third teamers, So if he's going to be worth that much to you, I want to see some production from him. I probably don't want to see Jonah Coleman out there. I'd rather save him for the regular season, and if he takes an extra game or two to get his legs underneath him in the regular season, that's okay with me. But rookies hit walls anyway, and I think he's shown me enough. I don't need to burn him out in the preseason, especially at a position like running back where you can get injured real easily. Apparently, Legwold thinks he needs to see more from Savion Jones and that he might not have a spot. So that'll be interesting. I think defensive line and linebackers are two spots where there's questions about who your depth pieces are going to be. So if there are guys competing for jobs on Friday, those will be the guys. I also was surprised that he didn't have Alex Forsyth making the 53. So... And in fact, let's look at the Broncos' depth at offensive line here and how they have it listed out. Okay. So you have Wattenberg. So I know Throckmorton played a little bit of center with all the injuries. I mean, would that be their plan going into the year? If you don't keep Forsyth, it would have to be, wouldn't it? Miners and Powers couldn't do it. So you're not sliding one of them over. Did he have them keeping Dieter and I missed it? Maybe that's possible. Let's look. Bowles, Powers, Wattenberg, Miners, McGlinchey. Those are your starters. Palczewski, Throckmorton, Crum, and Cage Casey. I don't know. I don't know if Casey has taken snaps at center. I mean, the way that Leggy writes this, it makes me think that they're counting on Throckmorton to be the backup center if Wattenberg can't go and you're not keeping Forsyth. But that's a strange mix for me. So, yeah, I mean, those are the types of jobs that we're talking about maybe being up for grabs in that final preseason game. So, you know, as far as what I'm looking for, depth offensive line, depth defensive line. I think you're pretty much set at wide receiver, maybe tight end. You have a little bit of a conversation about some depth at tight end. Your cornerback room is terrific. Your safeties, maybe a little bit of a fight there, but I think you're pretty much set there as well. I think you're set at your teams guys. So, yeah, that's what it really comes down to. And I think if you're a coach, you just want to see better execution than you saw against the Packers. But overall, it's all about staying healthy and getting to that Chiefs game healthy, and then we'll go from there. So they've got a little bit of a break after that. You get a week off, and then you get the opener on the Wednesday night after, and the Australia game on the Thursday night, and then nothing till Sunday. And if you're a Bronco fan, you got to wait all the way till Monday Night Football for your first game of the season, which I think honestly will be nice. Like, you want to see your team play, but you can sit back and watch the whole league play first. I don't know, Bronco fans, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just feel like it's all right that you don't play till Monday night. You can kind of enjoy all the pageantry for the two opening games and then for the big Sunday kickoff. And then you get your team on Monday night. But this city will be feeling it, I'm sure. And, I'll probably go live during that game with you. As it's a Denver Sports Monday, so why the hell not? You know what I mean? So looking out a little bit, but could be a fun day to go live. But I think that's it for a Denver Sports Monday. Like I said, not a ton going on today. We're in the dog days here of camp, so I don't even know if it's the dog days of camp. Camp's almost over, but all right, everybody. I appreciate you hanging out for today, and we'll see you tomorrow with an EVE Online Tuesday. Until then, I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you soon.